morning. We'll call this meeting to order for the Riverfront Design Committee for March 7th, 2019. We'll start with item 1, roll call.
Scott Howard.
Here.
John Postick. Michelle Dean. Jonathan Heisel.
Here.
John Joyce.
Here.
Don Casperite.
Here.
Barbara Larson. Dana Templeton.
Here.
And Mike Voorhees. You have a quorum.
Okay, thank you. Item 2, approval of the minutes. Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Item 3, cases withdrawn, none. Item 4, continuance request, none. Item 5, consent docket, none. Item 6, cases for individual consideration. We have item 6A, SRCA-19-00004 at 311 South Klein Avenue.
Thank you. Good morning. We've got some work that's getting ready to go on. Some has already gone on at Farmers Market. First, let me just point out this is the first time we had to do a map like this because the cases on our agenda are so far apart in the district. So this lets you know just how big Scenic River is and that we have work going on, which is exciting. Farmers Market, they're not doing any work on the main building. They're doing it on the one-story building behind it. They've already done the re-roofing, which is part of the proposal, which is the white TPO that they put on. And then the other work they're doing is described in here. They're taking off some of the overhangs. They're replacing some of the metal siding that's up so that it matches, closing in some of the windows more efficiently than with just pieces of wood like some of them are. And they're also installing a generator that's going to be located in a container, but it's going to be kind of tucked in a bend in the building. And as shown in the staff report, we had no issues with what they're proposing. They are here if you have any questions.
Would the applicant like to approach the committee or say anything?
Jim Olivas, contractor for the applicant. Is there any questions you have for me?
Other than the metal awning that's kind of raggedy, I guess, the best way to
They're
describe
very
it.
dilapidated. They're more of a hazard to leave up than they are. I mean, we're going to take most of that down. There are a few that are in decent shape that are going to remain, and they'll be painted up to match, and it's going to get a kind of a fresh new look on the outside.
Okay.
It won't be new look, but it'll be similar to what's there. There's a variety of different sidings that are on that building as you go around it, and we're going to try and, put more consistent siding on it, so it will look a lot better aesthetically.
Okay, thank you. Are there any other questions?
I have a question. I'm not sure how it really relates to this, but I drove by and saw the TPO roof that had already been put on.
Yes.
And
I should have clarified, they're not finished.
okay, good.
Okay, I thought that's where you were going. They have not put up the
I didn't know if we were.
It's loose on the edges as we speak. There's with the awnings that are coming down, we're repairing the fascia behind the awnings.
Okay.
And that has to be done before we can put the termination strip to lock that TPO down.
I was wondering how that was going to work.
Yeah, there was a
It'll look better, I
there was
promise.
a lot of damage all the way around
Okay.
that building as far as water rot.
I'm not sure appearance really plays into what we're supposed to be doing, but as
does.
a warranty of the items that they're installing.
Well, it'll be finished out and look good when we get done.
All right, thank you.
And Laura, what was the staff recommendation?
For approval, we had no issues. The end result, it's going to look a lot better than it does now, but it'll still fit in with the farmers market area.
Okay. All right. Well,
Move approval. Second.
okay. Any further discussion? All right. All in favor? Say aye. Any opposed?
Thank you.
Motion is approved. Item other business is 7A is an SPUD 01100 at 630 Southeast 15th Street.
So you all haven't, I think it's been 2015 since we've had a SPUD before you for a recommendation. So some of you have never actually been involved with one. And so what your role is to make a recommendation to the Planning Commission on a proposal for rezoning. So as you can see from this, the yellow piece is in SRODD. The green part, which is south of where the alley would be, is outside. So your recommendation is solely on the yellow part. As stated in the staff report, staff had no issues with this. The uses they were requesting are all allowed in SRODD. Nothing was prohibited. It's still going to remain in SRODD. So any work, any new building, any work on existing buildings, any site work would come through for certificate of approval, and where required would come before the committee. So staff was supporting this request to allow for redevelopment of this property. And the applicant is here if you have any questions for him.
Are there any questions for the applicant? Okay. I entertain a motion. Approval. Any further discussion? All those approve, say aye. Aye. Any against? None. Motion carries.
Thank you.
Item 7B is SPUD 01108 at 2928 Southwest 15th Street.
So this is over at the western edge of the district. Once again, what's in yellow is in SRODD currently. The platted alley is where SRODD ends, and so I've got the blue line showing you the district limits. So what's shown in green is also in this SPUD, but is outside your purview because it's not an SRODD. This is a little different than the last one, and the reason this is different when you look at the staff report is not only was the proposal to remove it from SRODD, but it was to do I-2 as the base zoning. And as you can see in the staff report, there's a whole bunch of uses in I-2 that SRODD does not allow, and that was a concern of staff. There's been some discussion about a possible solution to this proposal to actually allow for SRODD, to revise the uses proposed, revise what they're planning to do so that we don't have objections to it. So let me clarify that. So in the staff report, I included all those issues that we had a problem with that did not fit in with SRODD. And staff had no option but to recommend denial based on the uses they were proposing and the fact that they wanted to take it out of SRODD. And staff is adamant about not removing anything from SRODD. There was a reason why it was put in there in the first place. And although this is down toward the western edge, there's still a reason why it's in there. And it might not be today, but it might be 10 years from now when stuff is redeveloped and we want it to fit in with the district. This is an entrance into Oklahoma City. If you're coming up the interstate and you get off on 15th Street. So when you looked at the pictures that I took, this is not an area that's really had redevelopment of new buildings being built, things that are fitting in with the district at all. There's a lot of automobiles stored in the right-of-way, behind chain link fences. They're everywhere in this area. So I tried to present this in a way to say staff really had no choice but to recommend denial. So on the flip side of that, let me just say there is a possible solution, because I know we always try to look at solutions here, and that solution could be if the uses were revised, So it didn't include those I-2 uses that are prohibited in SRODD. And if it remained in SRODD, so that it would have to comply with the regulations and the guidelines, staff wouldn't have an issue with that at all. Keeping in mind, we're just making a recommendation to the Planning Commission only for that area that's in the yellow. One solution staff recommended early on was just pull out all those cars that are in there now from the yellow and stay south of the alley, and then we wouldn't be involved. That wasn't an option. They were trying to figure out how to keep what's there. But that use is not a use that staff supports. Salvage use is not a use that's allowed in SRODD. If this was changed so that it stayed in SRODD and had I-2 uses as allowed in SRODD, staff wouldn't have a problem with that at all. Because then it would be similar to the last one we just had, where anything that they're going to do would have to come before us for a certificate of approval, and it wouldn't allow uses that SRODD prohibits. And those uses are the more industrial uses as compared to, I mean, what's there now is I-2 uses that are there. So I guess that would, I realize that's not written down, but staff wouldn't have an objection if that's where we headed today. But I don't know if that's what the applicant would agree with. And so the applicant is here. I told him he could sit because he has a bad foot, and so I believe one of the two of them are going to want to speak.
Ladies,
Come on.
what we're trying to do is,
Can you identify yourself for them?
we have my name is Stanley Dobbs. I live at 6732 Southwest 134th, Oklahoma City. We have a revenue generating site there now that produces about $2,000 a month in rent. We're trying to preserve that. We've been utilizing it to acquire land for a project we've been working on for 10 years. 10 years ago, we had the project 30 days from breaking ground, and we got stopped by a U.S. Attorney General Assistant with a cease and desist order because of one drunk cussing everybody in Washington, D.C. out, who had 364th airship and a piece of property. We have now got them, where they're willing to work with us. We're waiting for a court date with the Supreme Court. We've already been through the 9th District. Mr. Gilmore can tell you that in a few minutes. He is a constitutional attorney for the tribes. But we are trying to bring this project to Oklahoma City. Y'all's demographics 10 years ago said it would create 4,000 jobs. It would increase the car flow by 3,500 cars per week in National Stockyards and on Meridian Hotel Row over there. This is a good project for the city, and at the time that we originally was working, your city councilman knew about it, and Eddie with the zoning commission, it was the best kept secret in Oklahoma City until we got that cease and desist order. But we've worked on this for 10 years, and we've got it now, where we think it's going to complete and be able to bring it to Oklahoma City, and it will change the South Side development. It will be resort-type property for bringing in tourist trade of all kinds. And if you'd like to hear the attorney, he can explain where we stand with the Supreme Court. I thank you for your appreciation and considering to try to help us with this. And we're hoping to be able to eliminate the cars within a year to a year and a half to start the project and start the groundwork if it depends on the Supreme Court.
Mr. Dobbs, I apologize for getting here late. I'll sign in. It would be best, I think, if this could be discussed in a planning session, or maybe this is.
We're not able to do that under Oklahoma law. Under the Open Meetings
I
Act, if
understand
they're
that.
having any kind of
The
consideration.
subcommittee, is there a subgroup
No.
that this could go in front of before? I understand the
Yeah,
open.
we're very limited on what the exceptions are to the Open Meetings Act, and we're able to have executive sessions.
I see. Well, the project has been slated for,
Can you identify yourself?
yes,
so
my
we-
name is Mr. Grellner, attorney for Mr. Dobbs. The project's been slated for 20 years, and it's been through a lot of hurdles. And as you all may well know, there's a piece of property there that's Indian country on 15th Street.
They wouldn't have that knowledge?
They wouldn't have that
No.
knowledge. Well, it's there, and it's been slated to potentially be a development down the road that could help the city. And that's why we would like to keep this basically zoned in a way that it could be developed in the future and not foreclosed. And that's why this is important. So that's where it's at. But a piece of that property there, about 10,000 square feet, is Indian country under federal law.
Is it held in trust?
It's held in restricted status by an individual tribal member, so effectively, yes.
Is that piece located within the spud, or is it north of the spud in that neighborhood?
Yes. It's right there on, is it 15th Street? 14th, I stand
Yeah,
corrected.
okay, so it's not physically located within this, it's to the north?
Actually,
This to this.
all the
Correct.
property that's owned on 15th Street abuts up to it. So it's right there. It's right there in the development area.
But just to clarify, the piece of property that you're saying is in restricted status on behalf of an individual tribal member is not part of this application for this SPUD?
Right, well, my understanding is, I've got this little hand, is that it's somewhere north of Southwest 15th Street. It's up in here somewhere.
That's correct.
So it's not located within either the shaded yellow or the shaded green area.
That's correct.
Okay, and that is the subject of the SPUD.
But anything that's zoned around it will have effect. That's all. We're just trying to keep the options open, that's all.
Yeah, so what is in the purview of this committee today is what is specifically going to be within the SPUD?
I understand. All we're asking is that it not be zoned in a way that limits the opportunities for the city or the owners down the road, or the adjacent owners. Thank you.
So I do have a question as far as, are you willing to make the adjustments as per Laura's statement to be in agreement with what planning would accept?
The current request is for I-2 uses, which are heavy industrial uses, which do not allow the type of uses that were indicated in the presentation that they're proposing for this area, the resort-type uses. And staff doesn't have a problem with I-1 uses as allowed by SRODD and leaving it in as SRODD.
Is that what we're...
And I don't know, because I hadn't talked to the applicant about that change, and so I don't know if they're willing to agree with that.
Do we have a list of what the I-1 is?
We're willing to put up a site.
Uses, I-1?
We're willing to put up a site-proof fence.
Okay, you want to know oh, you're asking for the I-1?
I'm familiar with I-2.
Well,
as
what's in
shown.
my staff report, where I list all of the uses not allowed in SRODD, and I'm real specific because I have a long, exhaustive list in here. The way I worded it is I-1 uses as allowed by SRODD. So what that means is that staff supports as long as there aren't any uses that SRODD prohibits.
Would
And-
that prohibit anything we're discussing? Potentially? All we're asking for is the city and the owner be able to keep their options open with surrounding property so it doesn't prohibit what can be done, because that's going to be a significant area into the...
Okay, just as one example, a hotel, which is allowed in resort areas like they referenced, is not allowed in I-2, but it's allowed in I-1. And that use is allowed in SRODD. So that's just one use as a comparison
I assume
between the
other
two
retail
zones.
would be also? I would assume other retail would be also?
Yes, please.
Thank you.
Hi, sorry to jump in here. Sarah Welch, Planning Department. So if you could go back, so on the north piece, the one we're talking about in the SRODD, and this is, I'm doing this for the benefit. Okay. So currently it's zoned R2. What this zoning would do is a negotiated zoning. It includes uses currently proposed in the I2 district, but if we change it to an I1, you're absolutely increasing the number of uses that can occur on the property. Right now, R2 really only allows duplex. So it's not in conformance right now with the zoning. If you maintain the SRODD overlay, it's going to prohibit a lot of mostly vehicle-related uses. So what we can do through a SPUD is say, and what we're doing, what planning staff is recommending outside of this body, may be to keep the northern tract in the design district, because we'd like it to come back to you for design approval, and change the base zoning district to an I1, which would allow a lot of commercial uses, but not the auto storage, not auto repair, those types of uses. And then we'll work separately with the applicant to talk about the south tract, and that's the tract that we would need screening. It's not currently in compliance, screening up against the residential to the south, and we would work with them to see if we could keep the auto storage use there, and then not allow the salvage on the site at all. That's not permitted by I-1 light or the SRODD.
She's speaking our language. Thank you.
So is the applicant willing to amend their application for the I-1 use instead of the I-2?
Are we willing to amend our application with the I-1 instead of I-2? That's what he's.
Right. And the applicant, I know he's concerned about the auto storage. What staff is recommending is that would occur on the southern, on that green tract there, and not on the yellow.
Yes. I think we're in agreement.
Now, I do want to also make the clarification that you're recommending body to the Planning Commission, who is also recommending body to the City Council, and the City Council makes the final decision on the zoning. So it's a negotiated process, and that's where we are today.
I want to thank her for clarifying it. Thank you.
I'm still wanting to see a list of the I-1 allowances. Okay.
Are you all through with me?
If you have anything else to say, that's fine.
Hang on just a second. I borrowed Sarah's notebook, and I will take this. And just as a point of clarification, there is automobile light repair is allowed, but there's conditions. Like vehicles can only be there for X number of days. They have to be stored in a site-proof screened area. And it doesn't allow doesn't allow painting, that kind of thing. So there is some limited automotive repair work allowed in I-1.
Are we saying that there is basically some use going on in this property that we're considering right now you're saying it's zoned R2?
It is zoned R2, and part of it is zoned I2. Parts R2, parts I2, and this is before us because they got a code enforcement violation on the property.
Okay, so that's what I was making a point, is that there could be some code enforcement violations right now, and are they asking us, in effect, to make those violations go away?
This was one option open to them to remove part of the violation. It doesn't address everything. There was a reference to screening, that they were willing to screen it, but that's what brought the application in, because of the code enforcement case.
Can I just read off some of the list of things that an I-1 allows?
And let me just clarify, what I said was, staff is supportive of I-1 as allowed by SRODD,
Okay.
which is what we're talking about. We're not talking about blanketly allowing everything in I-1. Does that help you with?
Yes, it does clarify.
Okay.
I wanted to familiarize myself with what that was based, and then see how that works.
Okay.
Are there any other questions? Would somebody like to attempt?
So if you want me to restate what we've changed our recommendation. You can always recommend denial. That's always an option. You can recommend approval as presented. We would caution you, please don't do that. The other would be, and Sarah, correct me if I'm wrong, you could recommend approval with the property remaining in SRODD and the uses being I-1 uses as allowed by SRODD. And I would be glad to state that for you, just like that.
Okay. Would someone like to make a motion?
I move approval of the amendment as stated.
Okay. Do we have a?
Would you like me to repeat
Please.
it? Which is for the, and we're talking just about the yellow, for the property to remain in SRODD, and that the uses permitted would be I-1 uses as allowed in SRODD.
Okay. Do we have a second? Second. Any further discussion? All in favor? Aye. Any opposed?
Okay, hang on just a minute.
I'll go with
Well,
an
we
aye.
had one that hadn't voted yet, that's why I was waiting. Okay.
Okay.
So it was 5-0.
Motion
Okay.
carries.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
And I know we're getting ready to lose quorum because somebody has to get on the road, so what I'll say is, we don't have a meeting yet for next month, but I'll let you know in a week and a half. Other than that, I don't think staff had anything that we needed to.
Okay, so item 8, communications. Okay.
I appreciate y'all being here because I didn't think we were going to have a quorum, so.
Okay. So no other comments from planning, comments from committee members? Next meeting date, item D is April 4th. And with that, we'll adjourn.
Thank you.